And boom, and we're live. And well, here we are, another fine evening, and in this fine year of 2016. And just before we were going live, man, tonight's guest is or Killtheoppressor. And just before we were going live, we were just discussing about about your approach to basically how because I've tried to find your music and stuff, and you were just telling me about why it's so difficult to find. So before we go any further, man, I mean, good evening. How are you doing, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to finally meet, face to face, so to speak. Crossed over the pond,
It's
you
perfect,
know.
man. Well, like I said, I mean, we were just mentioning that. So, I mean, without any sort of further ado, really, kind of sort of like pick up where we were discussing beforehand, and tell people about, well, Kill the Oppressor and why they can't find it and what your plans are, really.
Well, basically, Kill the Oppressor began with me twaddle fucking around with electronic music, learning that after years in studio with live projects and things of the sort. So this was at the beginning. Soundscape for film was essentially what I was thinking with it, because yeah, those that I would share it with other bandmates and so on. Always kind of there was a lot of imagery in it because it's instrumental, and so from that kind of humble beginnings, now flash forward around 15 years. Now there's over 600 tracks recorded, ready to throw out there in the world. We're working on all sorts of live music. Now I have a band together with some lovely gents, Douglas Murphy and Brian Ropshin on percussion, and getting that all dialed for all the live projects. And so I guess a little bit more about what I do. I'm a circus performer, do sideshow freak show stuff, multimedia artist, work a lot with animation these days. 3D animation is kind of where my heart's going towards with that, because that's the only way I can find to translate what's in my head out there. It's always moving pictures, right? And so basically take the dream and find a way to manifest that. And so ultimate goal being that we've been working towards is live music act incorporating sonic backdrops that are wild kind of soundscapes, sort of shoegaze noise project soundscapes in the background of live silk aerialists and trapeze artists, juggling, fire breathing, fire spinning of all sorts, stilt walkers. Even got a guy that rides a 15-foot high unicycle that juggles shetties and stuff that are on fire. And so in terms of the live act, where that's going is that direction. And so I've been working like a fiend on the visual aspects recently. So to try and get very interesting 3D projector light show going on, where it's a lot of mobiles that are hanging on stage, or even the costumes themselves are going to pick up the projector and isolate that as its own image, that the movement artists can be part of the light show, part of the music, and add in whatever way, the shape or form that they would like to do. The reason Kill the Oppressor being the name is it's not out to put a claim out on murder or nothing. It's more the idea of like anything that's holding you back from your ability to be creative in this world. So if that recently it's sleep. So killing the oppressor on not sleeping at all recently. Just kind of working on this thing. I was in the studio for 8 hours yesterday, and so sleep when I'm dead. I got a lot of things to get done before then. So, but yeah, long and short of it, that's kind of what I'm working towards, and what we're all working towards. So it's coming along really good. So I'm anticipating in the next month or two, basically throwing the black flag down, and land the pirate ship on the world, and let them listen to it and let them see what they think.
I mean, that's a fascinating journey you've been on. I mean, the thing that's immediately peering into my mind, and the question that begs from that is, you mentioned a lot about, obviously you're playing a lot with live, like other performers going on around you when you're playing. So the whole basis of what you do with Killtheoppressor when you're making music, when you're recording it, I mean, obviously the live event must feed a lot into how you play when you play live, because it's, that's the whole spectacle of it all. But does that, I mean, my question to you would be, how does that play into when you're on the days when you haven't got the jugglers around and you're sat in the studio and you're trying to do it? And how do you try to catch that vibe? Because it seems very kind of essential to what you're doing live, and imagine trying to pull away from that in a studio when it's just, how many of you, 4 or 5 guys sat there in a cold day in Canada thinking, how do we try to remake that live experience? So how does that whole process work?
Well, for me, it's all coming from sound to begin with. So the sound was like, I'm a musician since I was around 10, playing guitar, and then getting more into multi-instrumentalism. So from acoustic guitar to electric to bass, and then hand percussion of all sorts, didgeridoo, throat singing, beatboxing, and then the more I got inspired by sound itself, the more music I listened to, the more performances I would see along the way. And so sound is the humble beginning, right? And so, like, if I close my eyes, and I was always into that synesthesia of what does that tone, what color is that tone, for instance, right? And what images come from this mood and feel, and kind of after music and sound, in a way where it's trying to play the spine shiver, for lack of better words. Like a good piece of music to me kind of makes my goosebumps go, and that sort. So, like, playing with those concepts, and so that's kind of the beginnings into the light aspect, but basically coming from a dream I had when I was around 14, where I saw this show, and it was very lucid. And what I was seeing was spinning laser geometries that were associated for, like, A through G. All of those had their own mandala that was spinning in accordance to the tempo. That laser show was live linked, MIDI triggered from the live players. And so everyone had their own ability to be the live animation to this light show, was that dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, being heavily interested in composing, it was a logical leap to try and figure out how to accomplish it. And so, yeah, that's the trajectory, I would say. So, like, in terms of live playing while people are doing things, essentially just embracing the insanity. And so, like, if I'm on drum, for instance, at that moment, and it's kind of akin to a flamenco dancer. The flamenco dancer, when she moves her hand and shakes her hand, that's exactly what the flamenco guitarist is showing you through the sound. And so that synesthesia, I think, is well represented through, like, flamenco dancing and flamenco guitar, and how that works together. And or, for instance, like Cirque du Soleil, when they're doing their things where the live musicians, I always found that fascinating, where, like, the aerial artist, or the trapeze artist, or the trampoline acrobat, or whatever, is flying in the air. There's a piece of music that's being done at that same point. And so sometimes you have to roll with the flow, and it's not exactly going to time out. So the hand percussionist, for instance, is going to do a couple more rolls because maybe they caught way more air at that moment, like, and the ability for all those live musicians to click in and keep the conversation going and keep the show going, and being an inspiring backdrop for these movement artists, so that all the viewers can appreciate and enjoy this sort of dream construct that they're putting out. So, yeah, something similar is what I'm after.
Well, do you know, Pat, it's fascinating you mention all this, because I was kind of like, I do deem myself fortunate. I mean, my very first ever gig I went to was to see Dio live in Hammersmith, and it just blew me away. And I was like, you know, I had that whole. You talk about stage effects. I mean, I'd ask people who maybe listen or go back and check out what Dio was doing back in '87 and stuff like this with light shows. And the thing was, I kind of went to that, and that was kind of my kind of my love of music at the time. I was into that kind of whole genre of music, and I remember the sort of first time, you know, a few years later, I went to see a kind of non-metal band, and I was so disappointed by they just got up there, you know, stood there, didn't look interested, and walked off after about 45 minutes, and no understanding about the show and what people have paid for it, and trying to give people value for the money, and B, like you just get tapped into this whole visual aspect of playing the two together. And I've been to many shows and many gigs afterwards, and I just find it something that it's not really played upon a lot by now, and I think it's a fascinating thing that I think it should be, because I think, to be honest, and I know how you feel, but I think as an audience member, I think people are shortchanged so much when they go to music now, and I just think it's almost a reflection of the state of this sludgy world we live in right now, and this corporate world we live in, and that, you know, the shows are basically they just turn into these, you know, you go there, you buy your t-shirts, you will sit down, politely clap, and then walk away, and it's like, that's not what it's about. It's meant to be a visual experience, and it's meant to be connecting. And that's the whole point of it, particularly live gigs. It's meant to be that whole thing where you've got really loud volume, you've got great sound show, and you've got visuals going on, and you're meant to walk away from that event after you connect with all the people around you and feel like, that's how I felt when I went to gigs when I was, you know, that's when the best gigs I've ever felt to. But it seems so far removed. So, yeah.
That's exactly it. I always appreciate live music. You know, like if I have the choice between the two, I am always interested in what someone is going to present. You know, because I'm going to honor that. You know, they took something from their spirit or the inside of them, and decided that they have the courage to present said thing. So even if people botch notes, I would rather hear that from the heart, rather than you know, some overly compressed produced track, right? That I've heard before, that is all over the radio and so on and so forth. But yeah, the idea of being shortchanged at shows, yeah, it's a difficult thing, and so that's definitely. I feel the same way as you. If we're gonna throw down, I'd rather, you know, uh, rather go full tilt and ride that tidal wave all the way through. And so, like, give them a show. Yeah, give them a show, give them a memory, give them some sort of wow factor of like, oh, you don't see that every day. You know, like go to your coffee shop, and then all of a sudden people are throwing down this craziness that you didn't even know was going to occur. Like, I'm kind of into those kind of guerrilla shows, if you will, where it's just like, yeah, out of nowhere, boom, like 15 artists are here, and we're doing this interesting thing, and you weren't expecting it. You were there to go eat a grilled cheese sandwich or something. That always kind of cracks me up, is that wow factor, and then being kind of the town crier, you know, like walking out of a gig and just, yeah, doing the old school yelling of like, you know, we got a show going on and this is what's up, and then all of a sudden all these stilt walkers and fire spinners are everywhere, and no one was expecting it. And so they always seem to appreciate that idea of like, you know, we're all a community, and we want to have a good time. And so, yeah, looking towards that kind of aspect of yeah, I've gone to some great shows, and I've gone to some piss horrible shows. And so I don't want to prop up that mentality. Like, if you're going there and you're staring at your shoes, um, that's all well and good, as long as sonically what's going on is inspirational. Like, I've had many shows where, yeah, in terms of movement on stage, that isn't the big deal, because at that moment it's music, it's sound. So I don't need, you know, one of my bandmates is getting up in his years, you know, an old jazz player, progressive jazz player. Um, so that being said, we all can contribute what we do. I can't do what he does. He's soaring he's soaring like a Boeing 747, you know, up in the skies and doing all these fantastic melodies. So I'm going to root down, but the ability to be the bassist in that project is, you know, I kind of look at music like a tree, and we're all just sort of monkeys on the tree. So like to me, like bass is sort of the root glow of this, and you know, all those tendrils and ways it can go, and then that idea of like Yggdrasil or world tree, and the fruits and leaves and flowers and so on, and the wind that's rustling, that is sort of you know, the higher end melodies and things like that, and then the percussion is the thing that's actually like making it all possible, you know, like without that tree, without that ape banging on that piece of wood, to me, that's kind of where it started. You know, like it's either like we're imitating with our voice bird song or whatever was going on naturally, and then of course some sort of rocks banging on rocks or wood banging on wood, and then all of a sudden we got the foundations of what music is, right? So
exactly, and I think this is exactly where we stand in this paradigm of this world we are at the moment, because I think when we, you know, the general paradigm in the world out there, you know, the whole everything, not just music, but everything's all been driven by this. When what you just said, then it's when this connection between not playing from the heart, and it's just seen as a job, and okay, you can do this and be shiny for your one moment and go out there, and it's like you say, the greatest connection, and this is why I think it's really sort of fundamental, you know, about part of us as a human experience. It's not the style of music you play, it's not what you're playing with. Like you say, you can, I've been to sometimes, and I've been, you know, sat there with just a guy, and they just like literally just said no instruments, and have just vocally just into a vibe, but the things that they were playing from the heart, and they were playing. And when you do this, and I think this is a really the point I'm trying to make to, there is almost, it's when you start having people, and they come together, and they're playing from that real moment. This is what I think really what separates the, like you just mentioned before, like, you know, like going to a place and these people have come together and people go, oh, in the event of the thing, it's because it's shaking people out of this sleepy dull moment they're in. And this is what the playing from the heart is. So if you don't play from the heart, your objective is, okay, you're just looking at everybody for how much resources you can extract from them, and thinking, okay, how much, and then you just on to the next town. It's the old Bill Hicks joke, you know, you jump from, and it's the old play from the fucking heart, man. And if you do that, and this is what's been missing, and I think this is the shift we're going through, and it's trying to break that, as you said before, kill the oppressor, man. That's exactly it. We're trying to break down every barrier between people who want to play and have the opportunity, to where we've been stuck for maybe 20 years. Since I thought the internet would originally solve this, it would basically free the whole creative wave of us who basically all got it from the heart, but got no way. It's like, yeah, this is it's the other side of it, isn't it? It's like, yeah, great, I want to play from the heart, man, but you know, playing from the heart doesn't put bread on my table. And that's the cold reality of life. And you know, I said this before, I've lost many friends from this, because they, you know, they had it all in their heart, but the bills piled up, and before you know, they're in debt, and then bang, they commit suicide. And so we've got that's the very essence of kill the oppressor, getting rid of these barriers, so we can have more people who, I really truly think, in this world, who are taking the shackles away from them, are very, very creative. I think people are more creative than they're ever told, and I think this is because of this paradigm we live in, where everything, which ties into what I was just trying to say, is you don't go to anything to connect with people. Don't shake you out of it. It's just another form of entertainment down the line. And do you know what I say to people over and over again? And I don't know how you feel about this, but I think, you know, like all things, people have got to bear in mind, you know, in the future, we're going to be judged by you know, where we stand on, you know, what line of history we stand on, and I think that the future is going to be that, you know, the people who are playing from the heart, and the people right now. And I say to them, if you're just doing it all as just a job and a fame thing, you're going to fall on the wrong side of history come 10 years down the line, because there's a wave coming, and we know it from every angle, of just this whole thing of people decentralizing their lives, connecting, doing things for themselves, taking on the power, or very much as you say, killing the oppressor. People are doing this in not just in music and arts, but in their lives. And this is the paradigm shift that I was trying to say, that if you're not playing from your heart and you're just trying to just bullshit your way through life, man, you better make sure that you're going to be on the right side of history, because history doesn't remember these people well. I mean, history doesn't remember disco very well, but it remember, you know, people like Ronnie James Dio really well. History doesn't remember, you know, certain, you know, like, go back to artwork, man. I mean, what was perfect about artwork? I say this before. You know, if you taken pre-First World War, who was popular, who remembers them people now? No one, because they were on the wrong side of history. They were right. They were you know, they were putting out all the propaganda that everybody wanted, and it always breaks down to this thing about playing from the heart. And it's a very good mantra, man. It's a t-shirt, and I can't wait to see when you hit the world with it, of that mentality. Kill the oppressor, man. Kill the oppressor. Kill the oppressor. It should be a daily mantra to everybody. Kill the oppressor. Get rid of those barriers. Kill the oppressor.
Well, like the idea of like for any path that someone's walking, uh, you know, the idea of history showing certain things, like, and I like deconstructing words, and so like his story, right? Like his history is, it's all based on someone's subjectivity. But as long as like someone's looking at their reality through their own eyes, and decided to hack through, like, you know, sometimes it takes that nihilism, sometimes it takes taking the hard knocks to realize what your stance is in this world, you know, like, and what are you here to do, and where do you want to walk, and uh, you know, how do you look at your environment and decide, like, as the artist, like, with the artist's eyes, like, what are you going to portray that day, or what are you going to take in, because like it's half and half, right? Like I'm the observer half of the time, and half of the time I'm the creator. If that's my balance, that's a pretty good balance. I feel off if I'm not creating something that day. You know, like, be it like I'm a carpenter, I'm you know, I farm, and I'm very interested in research and development towards like sustainable living, and so that biodynamic approach to reality, you know, sometimes you're sowing the seed and sometimes you're reaping the reward, or not. You know, like, and why didn't I? And so if you can treat that moment kind of sort of in that Bruce Lee context, you know, is uh, you're never losing as long as you're learning, or like progressing. And so someone can like, I do kung fu as well, and so, like, you know, I might lose that fight, but I always shake the hand and say that was a good fight. You know, you had me open, good shot. You know, like, way to go and all that shit. But the benefit is like, okay, well, I took that left hook. Well, now I know how to fucking defend a left hook, because I know goddamn sure I don't want to be hit by that again.
Exactly.
You know, like, and so like my kung fu teacher has a statement of like, pain is the teacher, because you know, the goddamn well, you're not going to put your hand on the stove again after you do it once, as opposed to like telling a kid, no, you shouldn't do that. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. That's all like a story, right? Like, and so that's like his story to that child of like, it's all myth until the kid knows, and like, and so like showing them that way, you have children that are afraid to even make a campfire, and like, that's the only way we survived in the caves and so on, and got out of the caves, was understanding like how fire works. And so to me, like, in terms of that concept of like the originations of, like, say, music, for instance, or like music and dance, to me that was all around the campfire. You know, so like in North America here, like I'm a quarter Aboriginal Ojibwe. There's one of the first dances you learn as a child is called grass dance. And so what grass dance is you know, a fun way to first engage in your environment. And it's basically just a circle dance, right? What you're doing is kind of like a dog before they lay down. And so you're figuring out how the earth is up and downs, and if there's stones there and you kick the stones out of the way and so on and so forth. And then now you've created a space where you can make your sacred space, like for instance, like where to put up your teepee. So I trample all the ground down, make sure there's no bullshit when I go to lay down, right? Same as a similar to a dog, similar to a dog. And so, but that circle nature of around the fire, so right in the middle of the teepee is our little campfire, right? And the home itself is designed to support that existence. And so we want to be in relation to the earth, so that we're all comfortable, right? Like, and so that idea of like dance around the fire and the drum, and that heartbeat of that. So as soon as the fire goes out, here in the northern parts of Canada, uh, you're in a rough state. Like, as if you don't know how to exist with this reality, and you don't know how to forage dry enough wood to create your wildfire in the Yukon, for instance, is kind of where I learned that skill of being able to go through 3 feet of snow and find your wood to make your fire so that you can survive that night. It all took that, I kind of coined it as like your snow dance, like, or your Yeti dance, if you will, like trying to rustle through all that shit to find all your ways to exist in that reality. And so, innovation can come in so many ways, and I truly believe that everyone has their own eyes and can have a very interesting take on this reality. So say if someone's a bit shy, maybe they don't express it that much, but they might express it, say, through drawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a way for them to do that without having to deal with maybe like societal issues that they're not pleased about, or affect them too much, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like, going back to the idea of like whatever it is that is going to inspire someone, and however that's going to inspire, it's always been a fascination to me. So if we all grow together and we are like, all part of this existence, let's grow it in an interesting way. Like, you're discussing the idea of like, people doing art or music for the cash, and the cash being such a bullshit illusion, for lack of better word. It's an
No,
illusion that's spell casted upon us. That's not there. There's no heart in that. I will honor the fact that if someone's going to create art, there's heart in that, because they needed to like exist and have some reason why they were doing this.
exactly.
That shouldn't be the motive. Um, and on the flip side of things, like, I was homeless for 2.5 years, and I lived off playing music on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that on looking at music that way, that was my lifeblood, right? And so the generosity of those that came by and enjoyed it and shared a smile, or shared a coffee or a tea or something, was more than well appreciated, because that's exactly how I was staying alive. And so those people were helping me find my fire, like, and so like during that time period, I didn't look at it as work. Like, I get up and I grab my guitar, I grab my drum, I grab my bass, and I go play music all day. Like, I'm having a good day. And so like, if any cash comes out of that, I lived in an anarchistic flop house. And so like, basically, I'd take the change off the coffee table that was left after it. There was 8 of us living in a 2-bedroom house that was condemned, filled with mice.
Mm-hmm.
And we made power happen, and we made music happen constantly. There was always someone up recording music and things like that. And basically, my task in a day was, taking those couple pennies on the coffee table and throw that in my guitar case and play for 10, 12 hours a day, and come back, and that was what I could contribute with them. So like, here's some food. Here's me like having the willingness to pat someone on the back, be like, oh, that's a good guitar, like, let's record it. Like, I'll sit by the computer and do all the tech shit so that you can just stay in that state. Like, someone's inspired. It's it's that grace of the moment. They're in the moment. So like the idea of sometimes fiddle fucking around with wires and so on kind of pulls you out of it, right? And so let them be in that moment. So yeah, like that's another way that I've engaged in this reality, and I found it very positive to understand that like music can create a very nice thing for people. You know, like I could be walking through the dreariness of a gray building, cold road, and then all of a sudden on my way to work that day, someone's playing reggae or what. It doesn't matter what style, but like playing something that's like, it pulls me out of the moment. It makes me remember that I'm walking somewhere. And what I used to find being that busker was, I didn't have a timeline. Like I play until I
Mm-hmm.
like it, and I don't give a shit about money. Like as long as I had strings on my guitar and a bit of food in my gut, that's fine by me, And so, um, basically, that idea of waking people up and waking people up, I the way I used to see it was, play in a subway line or a tunnel. Sometimes I would do that. I'd take my amps, and it's almost like I was a militant going to work. I'd have this huge military rucksack full of effect pedals and so on, and live loopers and all that shit, and set up these loops and scam their power so that I can do it amplified. And I would take over the tunnel, and people, I would watch them headphones all the time, or like, but they're supposed
Mm-hmm.
to time, and they're so dissociated from what is around them. And so like those I used to call it well, stealing the power, right? Stealing the power from those who have the power. And so like I would plug in, and it's not like I was allowed to do that, but I would do that shit. Don't tell anyone. And so do that stuff, and that was enabling me to shoot through that the pillows that people keep over their eyes and their ears, right? Like, and pull them out of that shite.
Mm.
Because what I notice is basically it's like their spirit already knows that that's their destiny. So they've already made a choice, like I'm going to work that day, or I'm going to my friend's house, or wherever it is. They're already half there, and then it's like their physical form is just catching up to that. And I would notice all these people distracting themselves during that catching back up to where they wanted to be, like, and or coming back from there frustrated, because I would see similar people all the time in suits, and questing for the money and having no glory out of it and no time for themselves. And so my goal was basically to get them to pull their headphones out, take half a second to appreciate that there's something else in this world other than the stress that they had, the frown that they had. Well, maybe you smile for a second, maybe you feel a little different about reality, right? It's like, or even just by seeing me there, like homeless, it's like, well, at least you're not me. But look at that, like homeless guy has a smile on his face. Or even if
Yep.
I had a scowl, whatever, like I'm allowed to have a scowl just as much as they're allowed to have one. So
Yeah, exactly. And this is the very essence of, I think, where I do say we live in great days, because that campfire mentality. This is a campfire conversation, my friend. We're having this over much distances, and like I said, I mean, if you were to look at us right now, this is why I say these are great moments to live in, because we're at the tentative points as a species to have these. I mean, right now we're making these, googly hangouts, and I'm talking to somebody in Canada, and you're talking to somebody in Scotland, and it's all a bit, yeah, okay, progress this. Like I'll send you before we went live. You decentralize this, you take away those barriers, and you make this more of a fluid connection between humanity. That's what I'm saying. It's great. I mean, man, this is why I think I'm really aware that I don't. I really think there's a lot of people in our position that are taking all this around them and taking it all too blasé and going, oh, well, man, go back 2 generations. Our parents were, my grandparents, they may have had, exactly the same rebellion and thought process about the barriers around them, but they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the connection. we have this power, we have this knowledge. It's, you know, and this is the paradigm shift. It's getting people to say, look, we're fortunate enough to live in this times where, you know, we've got the ability to have this conversation. You know, okay, yes, we know there are barriers between me and you and the people listening, but hey, those barriers are dissolving on a daily basis. That's why there's people, you know, and I'm not the only one. We're building apps, we're doing things like you're doing. We're all trying to. There's many people in this world that just are chipping away at those barriers, and this is what I'm trying to say. And it's going to make this connection, this campfire thing, really happen, because everything, it's not only connecting just, you know, Canada to Scotland. The great thing that all of us have got to realize, and it taps into what you were just saying then, this is one of the things, the great realizations that people have to realize, is that we're all on one rock. We're not just, you know, little zones and stuff. No, we've all been bred and conditioned into, you know, nation states, and, you know, we've all got to fly this flag, and these invisible lines that are drawn by these people and who are long time dead, man. And this is what I'm saying. All these constructions around us were invented by people who are long time dead. But all that's coming down day by day by day. That's from every angle. But I think the other thing that's, yep, yep, completely. But the other thing that's going alongside that, and I think this is what you just mentioning, you know, you were tapping into then. I think more people, because of the paradigm we've maybe lived under for like 30-40 years, all the time I've been on this planet, is everything's become, like you just said, you know, almost like a set pattern. You know, the people are putting the madness every day. You know, you just step away from society and watch the traffic and hear traffic reports that people 7 in the morning they're stuck in traffic. That's just all being just conditioned. And like you said, and what people forget, and you mentioned it a minute ago when you were saying, is that we're all just on this rock, and ultimately all this. You know, we can go down to your local supermarket, get you a bit of, you know, your fresh food. It's all going to be ready. You put it in, you know, bang, and it's all there. Man, it's always going to take is one volcano going off, one meteorite hitting, and like you said, and the truth of life is we're all just that one. That's the reality, man. We're all on this rock. You know, you know, it doesn't going to take much, and I think this is what we need to. I think is going on at the moment. I think more of us in the West, particularly. I think the big awakening for us. You mentioned earlier on. I was lucky enough to live in South America, and I remember having chats with guys down there in the Amazon, and I remember having the whole conversation, and I think it's always stood true to me. And he said the problem with and he viewed the West as us out there, and, you know, America and, you know, Western Europe, and he said you become very advanced, which is great, but you've lost touch with nature. You've gone against nature, and that's where I think things are shifting now. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The technologies that are rising are inspired by nature, but people have got to get back to this because it is the truth. And I think this is one of the things I think people, like you mentioned earlier on, we're only just one bad winter away from all this. And the trouble is we've been bred into this weakness. That's why I mentioned all this. We've become weak as a species, and we need to start waking up and realizing what we are, because not only are we not weak, we have the greatest things inside our skulls that's empowered the universe. And if we can just understand, people, that this is, you know, you are the brains of the central nervous system, and these are chaos machines. And if you can connect that idea, man, no wonder the system wants to push us into malls and, you know, crappy cinema, watching some, you know, bollocks on TV, because they don't want us realizing that we have the most powerful machine in our heads and two pairs and chaos machines. That's as simple as it is. And I think, like you said before, this is this paradigm shift we're going for. And this is where the role of us as artists and the people who are currently, as you mentioned, the outsiders, this is our role. It's to push people. It's to shake them. This is the beauty. I love being what I'm doing, because I can stand at the outside and throw and say, look, shake you out of your reality. And this is the real truth that's going on. And hey, like you said before, man, and this is my whole point. It goes back to what I was saying. If us, who are these people, we can't be like that, then what the fucking point is it of it all, man? This is what I'm trying to say. I get more annoyed by people who are like us and go, well, I'm going to put out something safe and I want to make sure the audience, fuck that shit, man. We've got chaos machines and we're the outsiders, and our outsiders' roles as the artists is to shake that fucking, you know, the rocks of the paradigm and say, look what the sleep you're walking into. Rant over. I'm sorry, man. I was just free riffing there, man.
Yeah, feel free. Well, I find it interesting, like the word choice of chaos machine, right? Uh, the as many advances as they're gonna make, uh, you know, speaking right now about like computational mechanisms and this technology that sometimes distracts most of the populace. I mean, opium for the masses or crack for the masses. It's it is what it is. But with that ability, it's like, how do you treat that tool? Like, because there was some fucking reason why someone developed a computer that was bigger than my house. Uh, and at one point, it was a tool. And quickly, like, who was in charge of fucking with that chaos machine? Like the ones that those people created. Was quickly like figured out by for militaristic pursuits. And so like that imposition on that reality itself uh, is it's a hard knock towards all those people that were going at it from the right heart. Like just like, I want to build this interesting machine. I've got this machine in my head and I want to fucking make this thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, someone comes in and scoops it for whatever reasons that they have. But like our ability with all this technology in this time of in this era is it can be used as a tool for your own devices. And so like if I want an answer about that true fact about like who were those people that made this thing, or like the information age is a very interesting time to be, especially if you're curious. Like, and if you're into hacking through uh, the spellcraft and the lies, and getting beyond that and surf your way through to the truth. And so, truth can be that thing that sets everything aside, sets all the bullshit aside, and so that you can actually like look at something unfiltered by someone else's biases, right? And so like uh yeah, man, like there's no way they're ever gonna uh, be able to synthesize the speed of how someone's perception neurologically, like when those synapses fire and that moment of inspiration. A computer is, I would hazard a guess, is never going to be able to have that moment of inspiration. Not to go against like those that think AI can come and things like that. Of course, it can come in certain ways, but just like those chess computers, like people can beat them. Like for instance, like, and because of what they do something creative.
Yeah,
Like, or how did Bobby Fischer, win that world championships? Is like doing something that Buddy didn't fucking expect, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, this move where this knight is against the side of the chessboard where no one fucking ever does, is the thing that creates it so that he's a world champion.
yeah,
So that moment of creativity in the moment, uh, the idea that we constructed our version of using the language of like we created time,
hmm
and the idea of like being bypassing time, like you were saying earlier, the idea of like what you do in this present life, uh, is that going to be reflected historically? To me, I don't really give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
I'm gonna lead my reality the way I see fit during that moment.
hmm
Um, so 99.99% of the time, like I love everybody, and there's that moment where maybe during that moment, even if it is out of love, it's like I'm in a scrap. At least I know well enough, like I'm gonna hold back my punch and try and make it another way. But like if it goes to that, it goes to that. I would hope that there is some living legend that goes on through my child to his child and so on and so forth. Uh, that's a good thing. And so like that's the only way I know my ancestors is through stories, or because most of my ancestors, I mean, there was never the technology of say photography.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only go back to a certain instance. Or like on my native side, there was a house fire that destroyed all the records of that culture. And so like I only know back to a certain point. And so I can only extrapolate through dream and so on of who those beings were and how they affect my reality now and what they're going to affect in my child or beyond, right?
Yep.
So like I think the cool thing about like an artistic viewpoint on reality is if my construct it's a way to elongate uh, my presence here. And so, like, if I take time to build a house out of straw, it lasts X amount of time. If I take time to build a house out of wood or stone, and we're both interested in stonework and so on, and you're looking at some stone balancing I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the idea that like, don't you guys have a wall in Scotland that's something like 2,000 years old or 1,500 years old or something like that? And so
Yep.
that like those groups of people that took time, laborious time to construct said thing, uh, they still have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even know who those people were? No, but their creation has a legacy. And so like that's kind of an interesting thing, like, and so now uh, like just driving it back into music for a split second, is nowadays we can all have home studios. I mean, like you're sitting in my home studio right now, like I've got you propped up on my little keyboard here. But the ability to do that has bypassed the need for me to slave out to some job, get enough capital together so that I can like finally portray this guitar lick or voice idea in $1,000 a day studio, so that I can what, like what is the actual point of it? And so like when it used to be all about, it took a shitload of capital. It took a shitload of capital to
Mm-hmm.
hire Carol Kay, one of my favorite bass players. Tons of capital to hire that lady. I hope she got some of it. Like, Lord knows she wasn't making the same as the industry was making. And so to have one of the most stellar players on the planet play on your track, that's ridiculous. Like you come in with like a little lyric sheet that you don't even have anything set for, and then all of a sudden, her and her jazz mates innovate this thing that now becomes a hit for you that they have no royalties on. That shit is ridiculous. And so, like, if it was about the money, people like her or anyone that is creating art, if it was all about the money, like, it wouldn't be happening, is one argument. I would argue that, of course, it's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
because it has nothing to do with money at all. Like, it's something that people put something to. What it used to be was more like, oh, I like that person's voice, or
Mm-hmm.
uh, like invite them over, go back to the campfire analogy. I invite them over, like we should have a little sing song, a little, or like I like those person's thoughts, and so like let's have this conversation, for instance, like, and so yeah, like you're linking to the campfire. The idea of taking this phone that I create my art on, which I find baffling, like the idea of being able to put my finger on this screen and then all of a sudden this thing in my head is there. I still find that interesting. And so, like, I have a young lad, and explaining the world to him uh, is forever fascinating, because he has trust. He has trust in his old man, like, and so, and I have a weird take on this reality, and so the idea of like, what is this object? Often when he was young, I would just like kind of boil things down elementally, and so it's like, okay, like I'll discuss the phone, for instance. Like, it's like, okay, there's these parts of Earth that people put together in a certain interesting way. Some of those parts of Earth are crystals. And now, lightning in the sky, uh, basically, a tiny version of lightning goes through these interesting crystals in this super interesting fucking network that people have designed, that allow you to do this thing. So now it creates this light. Well, what is light, right? And then you're going on this forever explanation. because to me, like when my son, and I hope he's always in it. He was such a good person to be around during that why stage. That is an important question that
The
so many
most
people.
important question. The most important question is why, my friend.
Yeah, man. And so like, well, all of those are important in their own way. But I do find that why for me is beyond inspirational. And
Hmm.
so like by having uh my young boy asking me this and me having to at least attempt to answer or help him find the answer, like that's at a certain point. I mean, I don't know everything, so I'm gonna like at least try and fucking answer it for him, or help guide him towards something where he can process this thing. So like elementally, like viewing the world, I find beyond interesting. And so like, without air, my device is going to overheat. Without water, I wouldn't be alive to enjoy the benefits of said creation, and all these things. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be, and I'm very interested in seeing the effect of more people waking up, deciding that their voice has just as much a role in this sonic landscape as anything else. Or if it isn't their voice that they're comfortable using, or maybe they're mute, they write. They write about their thoughts, or they draw about their thoughts, or whatever it is that. I mean, we have a guy in Hamilton that I always find inspirational. He's sort of now becoming more well known. But if you're ever in Canada and you're in Hamilton, what you're going to see if you're walking downtown is there's a gentleman that dances everywhere he goes. He's called the Walkman guy. Okay, so he's got a Walkman from the '80s that someone gifted him, and he's an inspirational cat. So if you're having whatever day you're having, it doesn't matter if I'm having the most joyous day I've had in this city for a very long time. If I come across him on the next street corner, dancing his way to wherever he's going, um, that brightens everything, man. Like, it could be the sunshiniest day, but all of a sudden, like he's the sun, like he's the ray of sunshine on that particular moment, and he's got it. Like some people think he might be a loon, right? Like, but no, I think he's one of the most real characters in this city because he realizes, like, hey, fuck, I'm alive. That's a
Hmm.
good thing. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, and like the reason why he started dancing like that was, after his mother was diagnosed with the big C, uh, there was a moment where he thought he was going to say basically his last goodbye, and you know what? She got up off of bed and she was all right. And so he's been dancing ever since, every single fucking place he goes. And so that's a little tidbit from our city to yours, but like to be able to kind of live life that way, like dance like no one's watching, or you know what, if they're watching, dance more. Like,
Yeah, or as man, and people who know, follow me would know that I say it, and I think it's true. It's slay positive because we're all going to die, and it's the truth. We're all going to die, man. And it's, and I wanted to linger on one of the points you mentioned then, and about even the word, and I think it's fascinating. I like to talk about this, and I don't think it's not enough discussed. Is even the word? I'm totally agreeing with you. I think the edge we have right now as a species, as humans, is that creativity. I do think it's intrinsically part of where we are as a species right now. But I'm intrigued in that. That's what I'm saying. Even the word, people use the word artificial intelligence, and I think that's a very, again, this power of language. Is that what by calling it artificial, we're again doing the old trick that's almost been sent to us: divide it. I don't see it as artificial. I see it as natural intelligence. And the reason I say this, I've been fascinated this by for a long time in my life, and as I mentioned earlier on, I lived in South America, and I remember talking to guys in the Amazon, and they get when you sort of describe some of the things about like you say, like that very discussion with your son about how things were, they understand that. They go, yeah, 'cause Let's be true. They've had psychedelics. They've tasted plants. They understand about how nature connects, and they get it all. And they're just like, oh, okay, you call it artificial intelligence, and I'm exactly the same. I don't call this artificial intelligence. I think there's an intelligence rising, but I think what it is, and I think you're going to go down how I generally view it. If you were Isn't this just a great consciousness and fractalizing? And if you were going to do, if you were knowing, let's take the premise. There's an all-knowing thing. I'm not, let's take that. Let's go with this idea. If you knew everything, eternity, time, and all that, beyond all that, what would you want to do? You'd want to fractalize into a trillion billion pieces and experience it all, and try to experience it from every single angle. And that's what we're doing now, and that's why I don't call it artificial intelligence. That's why I don't fear it. And I think also, and I think it was very inspiring for me, just on a human, boots on the floor kind of thing. Again, it's something that you mentioned. I like to point out to people. That's why I say to people, look, right now we're in that almost like the printing press moment. And the great thing about the printing press wasn't co-opted by the church and by the state. They had to pay. But what the printing press shifted was it gave people to distribute ideas and thoughts. And the same as where we are now. When I'm like I told you before, I'm building N99. I knew nothing of this. I don't. It wasn't like I've got years of coding experience and stuff. But this is part of what you were just saying. The essence of being human, diving in, learning on your feet. But the great thing is, and this is why I want to say to people, I tell people all the time, especially the people who are creative, go out there and learn about it all as much, man. Because the great thing is, I can definitely report this, the people that are shaping the most powerful, it's been very well described to me by one, it's basically, we've got a child and we're nurturing this child. And the great thing about when this child has started to open its eyes, this intelligence, it's not looking at suits and generals. It's looking at ragtag people like me and you. And that's why I want us to shape this. Because right now we're in a very fortunate position where right now decentralization isn't being corrupted by Google or by the military. They don't know about this shit. So great. Let them distract themselves on X Factor and keep themselves worrying about what's going on in Syria. I'm more constructive. We've got the tools. And the great thing is, it's like we've got this printing press moment, which maybe only happens once every 600-700 years. But right now, this is what I say to people like us: we're on it, and that's what inspires me. All the people that I talk to, I know the people who are building stuff on the new Safe network and the new decentralizers. They're all like us. They're all thinking the same as us. They're not a bunch of suits, and that's what's really, to me, is so inspiring to me, that the greatest minds I see around me are, when we got a mutual friend through Minds with Lee Travis. He's Wiki Being, another perfect example. He's a great mind. He's not sat in some skyscraper in New York just making money. He's doing this, and this is what I say to people over and over again. It's that wake up moment of realizing you are the brains and you can shape this. And diving out, okay, be afraid. I didn't know. I've got no idea. All I am, for instance, we're in 99, a man with an idea. And it's like, well, okay, my concept is just, can we just break down the barriers between the creative and the audience? And wow, look, there's something that's going to do that. I'll build on top of that. Man, this is the very essence of it all. You don't have to have all this, like you said, knowledge and stuff like that. Just jump in. This is the essence of life, like you very said before. The essence of life to me, and this is where us creatives have this ability to do this, and this is why I say to people, jump in and shape it. Is, man, it's literally shaking people up from it. They're asleep. And the great thing is, we for a long time in my life, we can do shows and we can put music out, but man, now we've got the most powerful tool that's around, and it's gonna only happen once. It's like our printing press moment, and we can shape it and we can form this. And that's why I try to say to people, like, go and find out. Use people like Lee Travis and Wiki Being, and there's so many more. I don't want to go and listen to all that. That's why I say to people, go out and not only learn about it, but get involved and shape it, people. Because this is, the point I was trying to make to you earlier on is that, we're very fortunate because, imagine if we could have had this conversation in the 60s, in the 70s, brother. We could have been sat in some, like you said, some anarchist commune somewhere, sitting having this chat and being like, damn it, man, the man's got all the power, and dreamt of this moment. And here we are. we're in this moment in 2016 where we have the levers of it all in our control. Before, you know, the military don't own this, and this is what I try to say to people, that, man, use this, and I just do not want to get, which I've seen before. Maybe this is me being very kind of overview of it, but I saw my generation, like I say, in the 90s, kind of thinking, oh, okay, here we go, we're gonna bring down the system. We got, you know, I even saw it in music. I thought, okay, some of this music's gonna, you know, and what happened to my generation? They all turned around, had kids, voted for Tony Blair, went off into Iraq, did the same old bollocks our parents did, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? I'm really aware that this is what people are like, and we you know, so right now, okay, let's not fall into that same mistake again, like you were saying earlier on, like with everything's a lesson, and you know, let's learn from the lessons, and you know, let's try to learn from the great things we can do, and learn from the mistakes we made, and I think the greatest lesson we can learn to people to right now is saying, look, don't just rely on someone else, get up and do it yourself, man.
Well, that DIY is beyond important, and like, uh, you know, the idea of like we could have this conversation in the '60s and so on. Yeah, well, you know, if we both had different bodies and we happen to be in the same exact place in the world, yeah, for sure. For me, like I wasn't alive in the '60s, so you know, I the time is now. Is really what the point that I'm gearing at. And so uh, I'm forever fascinated and inspired by and an advocate for DIY society, and salvaging and creative outlook on what there is already here. And so, like, if the downfall occurs, uh, well, I'm sorry, like, you know, there's a good friend of mine that I'll just give props to, for saying it. But the idea of like he can't wait until the moment where moss grows on the streets. Um, I don't think it'll ever happen exactly that way, because we're still going to drudge those paths. Because, you know, like, uh, straight line to whatever I'm going towards, you know, like so like they built cities for a reason in a certain way. Some of them are designed better than others. Uh, but the idea of like water source, fire source, and things like that before the city was like so much. But the idea of like, you know, they're just modern caves, man. Like they're just modern fucking caves, for lack of better words, like to keep me away from the elements that were harmful to me. A cave was like actually a nice thing to be in, especially like when you lit that fire and you got rid of the dampness and so on and so forth. But what they all understood was like life is outside of the cave as well as inside, and so like the only way for me to exist is like to go find those plants that are going to keep me alive, that I can eat in my cave, or to go find those animals if like, you know, if they were into that thing, if the animals were around. But the cave itself, I mean, beyond like look at what people did with it. That, like, you know, speaking of that legacy of someone's creation, I have no idea, and I don't think anyone will ever figure it out, who those people drew. Like, who were those people that drew the cave art? Who were those people that took the time to make those runes and stuff like that? That that ego is dead and gone. But what they created will forever last and forever
Mm-hmm.
inspire us. I was like, you know, someone hacking through like, how did we discover language, right? Like, I'm a quarter Icelandic, so like fascination with runes, for instance. So like, you know, like there's one speculation of thought where it's just like, well, that's one of the first written languages. Why? Because like one of the first letters in that Futhark was that's the same letter that is created by an axe hitting something.
Mm-hmm.
So the simple fucking one line, you know, basically translates to ice. And so it's like, um, as far as people reckon, anyways. But like this idea of making your mark on something without fucking up the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you know, it's okay to use like some of the forest to keep yourself alive, But beyond that, like, why are we deforesting at such a ridiculous element, like everywhere? Like, it's it's maddening. Like to see that kind of thing,
Mm.
like something the size of Nova Scotia here in Canada, like one of our provinces in the eastern part of Canada, the same landmass of Nova Scotia is being deforested from British Columbia on our western coast yearly, and for basically shit tickets, or to
Mhm.
translate out of my jargon, fucking toilet paper, right?
Mhm.
Um, uh, that's goddamn ridiculous. And so, like, how many shits do people have to take before realizing, like, maybe they're eating too much, or maybe they're taking away like our source for clean air and so on and so forth. Because, like, as you were
Yeah.
saying, like, just to be mundane for a split second, the idea of, like, how we began our conversation was like, as most people do, it's just like, how's the weather and so on. Well, you know, uh, the weather right now where I'm at is fucking glorious in one aspect. It's fucking glorious in one way of saying, like, where it's super sunny outside. Like, I'll probably walk you over so I can like feed my dog and shit in a little bit. But it's super sunny. We've had fucking 2 snowfalls, and this is the Great White North.
Mm.
Like, this is like, if people want like some way to wake up, what they have to do is realize, like, that you have to look at the extremisms. And so, like, if I'm Great White North and I'm telling you factually, like, we've had 2 snowfalls. When I grew up, I'm sorry, by like October, I would have a 12-foot high snowbank. Now, granted, I'm from more north than where I'm living right now, but it's crazy. Like, I went back to my hometown for Christmas, and not a fucking drop of snow, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, People are, like, and that's kind of what I'm driving at. Is like, the quest for truth is evident right outside of your cave. And
Mhm.
so, like, you want to know what the weather's like, you go outside and you test it out. It's like, okay, maybe I don't have enough fucking clothes on or whatever, but like, then again, I can only get so naked. And so, like, to me, like, we're at that point of, like, here anyways, like, in the summers, like, we're breaking records for the past fucking every year for like around 15 years. Is the hottest ever. And
Mhm.
so and looking at, like, when I used to live in Yellowknife in Northwest Territories, so, like, to put that into people's perspective, like, that's close to the Arctic Ocean, right? Um, that winter has changed so dramatically since my sister, like, had moved up there 18 years ago, to the point where, like, there's 3 months, or German three, whatever, 3 months less of winter than 18 years ago.
Mhm.
That's insane. And so all the natives up there and all the elders that were still, like, privileged to have available to talk to about real history, like, so history meaning, like, their words coming to me over a campfire, as opposed to reading it in a book and so on and so forth, through language barriers. Them teaching you the way, and there's not enough people going about it in that respect, like, where, like, ageism is rampant and destructive. And so, like, for me to not acknowledge, especially, like, like right now, like, earlier you brought up money for like a split second. uh Look, like, if you have the ability, I would hope that you can quest out someone who lived through the Great Depression. Aren't many of them left, but I would hope that some people can talk to them, because, like, uh what they lived through
Mhm.
is about to happen again. And for those that are in their bubble, that bubble's gonna pop, like, and if they don't know how to grow food, if they don't know how to build their house, if they don't know how to make a fucking fire, you know, without gasoline and like doing it, you know, like Hick style, it ain't gonna happen. And so like they're gonna be reliant on what? Like they're gonna be reliant on true knowledge. You know, like so I'm not up to date on pop music. Every now and then the radio is on when I'm like
Mm-hmm.
going somewhere. But like I I'm not up to date on that shit. And so therefore I'm not up to date on a grand majority of trivia, essentially, like because I'm not fucking interested in it. Like
Exactly.
like the books in my library are incredibly boring to most people, but what they are essentially resource manuals. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, here's how to build log cabins. Here's how to, you know, build your own fireplace. And like basically like my library is that. Like if you have a question, there's a book. And you know what? It has an answer. And that answer is tried, tested, and true through someone who decided to embrace the elements and find a communion with it. Communion, not
Mm-hmm.
not imposing their shit on it. And so if people can find a way to use the tools at their disposal, because like it's everywhere. You know, like most of my friends at this point in my existence are anarchists, are
Mm-hmm.
DIY. You know, like and so like we make our own weapons. We make you know, we all train kung fu together, and the outlook that we have on kung fu and tai chi is being in union with everything around you. And so, like, I walk this way because it takes the least amount of energy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I eat at this time because that is good for me. I move this way in this dance um, because that is me embracing the now and moving with it. And so if the now right now is, you know, societally and civilizationally, like everyone's bullshit that they put down, like through their history of like how they're deciding that their illusions so that their, you know, self-aggrandized nature can profit. If all that shit is going to collapse on the backs of all those people that fucking made it, because like you know like it's not their back that made all those steel buildings and things like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that took workers and that took all those miners to fucking rape the earth to get all
Mm-hmm.
that resource to, you know, use metallurgy to do all these things for what, you know, like for quick death basically. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I've worked labor jobs for fucking ever, and it takes a toll. You know, to a point where uh, now I have constant nerve damage. You know, like I broke my neck probably 8 years ago, and recently got in a scrap with someone who broke a bunch of shit in me. Like I ultimately, like I walked away from the fight, and I'm the one that pulled him up off the ground after he was knocked out and walked him to a fucking park. But that moment of stupidity that I would hazard a guess because it was so fucking random. It, that moment of stupidity was because of that individual's inability to be in union with the moment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and, like for whatever stress that fucking landed him at my door that he tried to jump me at that moment, I don't give a flying fuck because you're trying to fucking end my life. So I'm dealing with it. But that's as far as I took it. You know, like I'm not going to end that person. I'm just going to deal with it. Okay, so that's dealt with. But now it's like every day of my life I have nerve damage, and so uh, the positivity that I found in, you know, after going insane about it, it's like okay, this shit isn't going away, and that's just fucking reality now. Which affects a shitload of my reality. So like, how am I supposed to do stonework for 14 hours a day when I have nerve pain from my head to my toe? Difficult. And so what I decided was, well, fuck this shit. I don't want to fucking continue with depression and so on. I'm gonna make art. You know, I haven't drawn in a long time, and so I and I'm loving it. You know, like so like worst case scenario, I can't get out of bed that day. Maybe, you know, like I can't walk very well and so on and so forth. It's like, well, I can still draw. like I'm still having dreams and so on, like the slight amount of sleep I get. But so that was a nice revelation recently. Was like art as a healing modality,
Mm.
like art as a way to engage in this reality where it's positive on both respects. And so like I'm giving myself slash someone else some fucking image to look at, whether that be a good image or not. It doesn't really matter because to me, maybe that day it's just I'm just creating, and at least I'm creating. Like maybe that day I can't strap a bass on my shoulder that's fucked up and play it, right? Like because the weight of the wood and the weight of the elements is too much. But at least with the art, that's giving me a way to re-engage in this reality in a positive way, on both sets of perspective, right? Like, and so uh, fucking loving that. And so like DIY my way through this fucking this trivium of this injury and get past it and just keep creating. Like keep walking my walk because I'm here to do stuff.
Exactly, man, and I think it goes back to what you were just saying. I mean, when you boil it all down to it, was trying to, that that you know that's why Mother Nature's always been a great, I don't even like using it, but nature itself has been a great inspiration for me because, like you said, I mean, it's the one truth. The one truth is we know we came from that and we're going to go back to that. Whatever happens, if I'm burnt or whatever, I'm still returning. I'm not going to escape this bubble. It's just we live in this bubble of the marble of what we're sinking it through space in. And the thing about why nature's a great, like you said, it's a great tool for inspiration is because, let's be real about it, man, it's a bitch. I mean, this idea that like deers like dance around and they turn into fairies. No, man, nature will spit you up, and it's that walk, and it doesn't forgive you. You fall down in the middle of a, you would know, man. You go out walk in the middle of Ontario, and you're walking that forest, and you fall over, and you twist your ankle. It's there's not going to be like a little fairy's going to pop out and go, oh, you've been a little. No. It's a harsh, but that's what's a great thing. It pushes. It's that makes you, like, to me, it inspires me the greatest because it pushes against any resistance I may have of thinking, oh, do you know what? I can't be. No, it's the greatest inspiration. It makes you want to create because you think, wow, I've got such a short time, and do you know what I mean? And the great beauty we've got. And I think this is really, again, sort of lingering on the point of what, where we're at this whole conversation is that for the first time we're making these connections, man. We've got people like me and you connecting for the first time. And that's just what I'm trying to say. It's like this bit, step by step, we're whole new connections going on, and a swarm mind is starting to build bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And there's no one in control of this. There's no leaders of this. It's like you said before. And it is the anarchist thought process with powers of talk, with the power in our hands. And this is the thing. And I said to people, they haven't got, I mean, people said to me about, oh, you know a lot about what safe network and decentralization. And I said, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to know. I don't know a lot about what the mechanics behind what's going on in the world right now. But I think the important point is just another example of what you're just saying of, and I think there is this whole shift where people are going, I can't. No. We've all been sold a lie. We've all of us. And you said about someone from a depression, dude. That man, I live in Europe, man. We've got countries collapsing left, right, and centre. America is dead from an economic point of view. The only reason it's alive is because somehow they've distracted the Americans under some illusion that their economy's not crashed and this all concern themselves. But man, that's like I say, and this is the point. People have got to really realise it's not only a push and pull. The world is about to shift, and instead of putting, I don't want to see it as a fearful process. I'm just trying to say to people, look,
Well, it's already
exactly.
shifted, and so like the idea of like you know the illusion that they've cast upon the American people is like, if we're talking in those great questions of how, right? How is easily decipherable. How is the gun, and that's how it was built, and that's how it's being maintained, which is this sick fucking reality, you know, like, and so, like, you know, these people coming in and fucking shooting across and killing all the Aboriginal,
Dude, that's
all
exactly the
that
point.
bullshit,
That's exactly the point.
and killing off the food source because, like, you know, they propagandize that, yeah, come out here and be a fucking, I don't know how to get this in
Mm,
camera, but be a fucking,
mm.
be a good hunter and, you know, come kill the savages and come kill all these people. But, you know, the great buffalo slaughter is a fucking very real thing. And the idea of, like, if we were to go to anywhere and like destroy the main food source, that, like, well, you know, like, it fucking tweaks your head when you think about it, you know, like, because so bison were fucking rampant here, and people were in union and communion with that, and then all of a sudden uh, you take colonialization into effect here, which is now, you know, the way we look at it is like America and stuff. It wasn't called that before. And so, you know, the gun was the thing that did it, and that's exactly how they're fucking maintaining it. You know, like, so the gun came in and, you know, sequester all these people, kill off all these animals to the point where, like, you know, bison are endangered until recently, until people decided to speak up and be like, you know, isn't this fucked? You know, like, the main bovine creature of this continent is endangered.
But that's the paradigm shift we're going through. This is why I think everybody needs to go through, instead of being this whole thing of like, you know, oh, I'll go and complain to a representative. Fuck representative, man. If you want the reason that all this happens is because people, it's the old analogy, man, that you don't have to be doing evil. When you turn away and you watch these, or you feed them. That's what I'm saying. Everybody that's going out there, I'm not getting on any, judging anybody at all, because that's the realities of life. But people need to remember that when they're fed all these distractions, and that's what I'm saying, the reason that all this happens is because people, it's a cyclical circle. So every time people go into the supermarket and they're getting that nice little bit of packaged meat, it's coming from somewhere, man. There's loads of white elephants in our society that nobody wants to talk about, but the reason that happens is to feed this paradigm, because it's to stop people from really waking up about what's going on. And the real, this is what I'm trying to say to people, that, you know, where people need to understand that, you know, you can't just be passive in this life. There is no passivity. There isn't a kind of like, well, I don't go and kill the people in Iraq, and I don't go and chop down trees. Yeah, but if you're feeding into the machine that is, then you're part of the problem. And this is where we are in this world right now. You know, we can't be living in this paradigm of like, well, I'm not doing it, and I'll vote for that person, and hopefully that charity or that little organization is going to help on my behalf. No, if you want something, do it yourself. Use the machine you've got. Use these chaos machines, man. And I think that's the real awakening that people have got to have, that they can't just keep relying on everybody else. And like you say, you mentioned the gun, then it's exactly it. How have they all got guns? How have we given rights to people, to officials, that we're not allowed to have ourselves? How come that they can put us in a cage for whatever they decide, but we can't put them in cages? This is what I'm saying. It's not only the gun, it's the paradigm that we've given to them. It's the power that we've given to them. It's the thought process. And what we've allowed ourselves to do as individuals is become weak and not realize that and all this has just been constructed by people, as I said before, that are long time dead. And that you don't have none of this. We can shape the world. So instead of being fearful and we're fighting, we can shape it. This is our world. This is our time. You know, this is the point. This is what I try to say to people. The wake up moment is when you go, wow, like we've been discussing, this whole conversation is when, wow, I can shape things. I can, if I want something doing, do it myself. You don't need anybody else. You get up, do it yourself. And I'm sure you're witness and you'll testify to this, because I can definitely testify to it. When you do wake up and you do stand up and you go out, man, the forces of the universe will come and will find people that will help you and come around you. I'm speaking to you. The reason we're speaking is because we both put our head above the parapets. If we were both sat in our bedrooms and like not talking to each other, this conversation wouldn't happen. And that's what I try to say to people: stand up, you know, don't be afraid by it, man. That the fear is exactly what's kept us. It's a tool that's kept us down as a species. They kept us divided, and they divide us by keeping us under fear. There's nothing to be afraid of, man. The thing we should be, instead of fearful, is grateful we've got this time and we're alive and we can breathe and we can enjoy and we have use of all our senses and we've got taste and we can go out to our and every day we can go out like tonight, go out and look at the stars, go out and look at the sky, you know, to feel
Yeah,
to feel the joy of life, man. And that doesn't cost anything. Like you said, that doesn't cost money. That's what I say to people. Some of the greatest experiences in life don't cost money. It doesn't cost you a penny to go out and take a walk and look at the stars. And then just do that. And then if that doesn't humble you as a human being and wash that ego away, when you're looking up at the universe and thinking, wait a minute, we're on a rock that's just tumbling through space. If that doesn't humble you and make you, you know, then think, well, actually, what am I worried about? Why am I doing these things? And that doesn't cost anything, like you said. This is the whole point. Money's an illusion. It melts in the hand, man. It's not. It's the greatest things in life always are just people waking up, standing up, and talking, connecting. This conversation, all these things can all be done, and money isn't needed. And money, it's like everything else. The moment of doing it, as you said before, and the moment why it's so essential is because of, like you mentioned, is what we were just discussing, is the very fact of, man, we're all gonna die, and that should be the inspiration, and the inspiration should be like, we've got this moment and we're here and we're enjoying it, man. And that's I have to ask you before you know, when we're on this discussion, I noticed a lot of your stuff, and I recommend people go and find you on Minds and under Killtheoppressor, because they can see some of your, you know, your great visual stuff. Was that a completely new skill you went into, the visual arts? Because I work a lot in pen and paper, and I noticed a lot of your stuff is done through computers, and you're working in that digital side. Is that a skill that you've just gone and learned? And what tools are you using for, you know, for anybody out there to sort of to follow your footsteps or to be inspired? If they think, what tools can I use to sort of do what you're doing?
Well, I always drew when I was a kid, but I I could never really find my medium, and then I got into graphic design when I was I don't know, say early teenager. I got enthralled with that, and I finally found something where it's like, okay, finally, like this is approximating what's in my head, as opposed to like my drawing skills. I didn't have the skills, right? And so digitally, I found that you know, through airbrush techniques, like digital airbrush and smear functions and things like that. It was more getting closer to the visions I had in my head. So yeah, these days, like post injury, basically it was like around Easter, or no, Thanksgiving. Sorry, Thanksgiving here, which is a funny thing to bring up next time I say after colonialization. So, anyways, Thanksgiving here, just like time wise. So, you know, sow the harvest, and so like that summer, what I was sowing was, you know, in terms of the garden, it was basically gourds and pumpkins and squash that you know, decided to flourish out of my compost pile, which is great. And so like, there's those things, and if people want to eat them or make jack-o'-lanterns or whatever, that's kind of beauty about pumpkins. Just on a side note, so yeah, Thanksgiving happened here, and that's when I just kind of like had this day of like, hey, fuck this shit, I'm gonna make art. So I was happy to see that you know, society wise, I hadn't ventured into it yet, and I was like on my phone on some Wi-Fi, and I just started grabbing apps that were like art based apps. And so it's just like, is there something on here that is free and open sourced that that I can use to you know, translate some vision and stuff. So I just got mad addicted to finding these apps. So like I don't know if I'm willing to say specifically, because obviously it's these other creators and all these things. I don't really want to big up anyone in particular, but like anything, what I will big up is there are things out there that if for the curious mind or the creative mind, if you're interested, there are open sourced versions of DAW, you know, sound engineering programs that you can just put on your phone that are fucking free open source, and you're gonna alleviate everything I got in the studio. Like you don't even need a computer anymore. You can do it through your phone, which is fucking crazy. And so like the same idea I find just as awesome is similar to art. I don't have an airbrush. I wish I did. Spray paint cans cost money, or people are racking them. Props to all the graffiti folks that are just racking paint and doing their thing and tagging walls and stuff. Um, but that being said, like me at this point, like I say, it's more my medium. It's an easier way to translate my thought. And so for any given piece that in the beginning stages of what I was creating more recently, maybe I'm filtering that through something in the area of minimum 5 apps to get the functionality that I was looking for. Now at this point on the phone that we're talking through, I've got something ridiculous like 35 apps. So some of those are more creational ability, like very interesting brushes. So there's a selection of 180 brushes through this one thing. It'll look exactly, well, as close as a digital representation of like oil on canvas or acrylic on canvas, and you get that texture. Towards something more obvious, right? Like and so like just like photo manipulation kind of things. I like blending. So like this one function has a good tool for this. Like I like that filter off of that app, so therefore I'm not going to delete it. And so like I'll just keep grabbing things where like I like what this does for this specific function. If I want to draw, and now lately, like most of my creations are I'm drawing with a program that enables me to immediately do a three-dimensional piece of art. And so like some of those programs are based off of like gravitational reorientation of the XY axis of the device itself that I'm drawing on. So like while I'm drawing, I'm moving the phone, and that creates this three-dimensional network of like for instance, like I can write "kill the oppressor," but I can write that in a way where it's a three-dimensional being, and now it's an automatic animation, right? Or I can draw a figure that is now an object that I can use for a 3D animation immediately, as opposed to like taking a two-dimensional construct and then going through every single X, Y, Z axis and doing that painstaking process, which a good friend of mine does constantly, and that takes hours and hours and hours, as opposed to like now, because people were inspired and people were basically anti-money, they put out all these free open sourced artwork, and so I'll big up that real huge, because like that's allowing like beginners or novices like me, or experts, to be able to create in a way that perhaps they didn't have the ability to before. And that was all because of someone else's creative ability. Like you said, like certain people have skill sets. I don't know how to program these apps. I have no idea where to even begin with that. And so other people are masters of their craft. And so they mastered the ability to do that, and they were fucking awesome enough to like just put that out there. So because they were interested in seeing what other people can do with it, like perhaps those people that do all those code aren't even artists. who knows? Like maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but they're definitely artists in their own craft in a sense of like, you know, making that program.
100%.
And so, yeah.
No, no, I think, I mean, I think what's fascinating while we're lingering on that point, and I think it's, you know, I'll turn that question to you. I mean, I'm give you a bit of context. I'm completely, to me, it's either open source or nothing. To me, I think this is black and white. You're either doing things on open source and you're doing it for the community, or you're another way around. And that's why I fly the project, you know, big style in this, and you know, for this medium, for anybody who's doing anything open source, because I think it's it's essential. So I mean, I'll turn that question on to you. Why is open source so, you know, you mentioned it then, why is open source so crucial compared to, you know, closed source projects as you see it?
Well, freedom is important, and so like if we're going to uh, if we're going to be able to cast a vote as an individual without having to be stuck in, you know, the polling lines and all those things that fucking take away from speed. I'm interested in speed. You know, like I used to be a speed skier, like an alpine racer and so on downhill. And always been interested in the rapid nature of how thought works. And so, like I said, it's like basically it's lightning, you know? And so it's a spark, the spark of ingenuity and so on. Anything that distracts from that, I find it can be frustrating. And so, like, it, you know, decades of my life being frustrated at it sometimes. And in other ways where I decided like a positive remedy to that is, you know, like all the years of musicianship. So DIYing musicianship. I never took lessons. Like I'm an ear learner. I'm self-motivated. You know, like and so I was after this thing on sound, and the thing that I was after, which I hope will express sort of my point, is uh, I never wanted, or no, I'll state it in a different way, a positive way. What I wanted was the ability to play what was in my head as the soundtrack in my head was happening. So the lack of distance from subject matter and conceptual, you know, neuronic firing, and so like that takes some woodshedding. That takes, you know, years and years of you know, sitting there fucking playing away to the point where you can do it. Okay, well, can you do it with your eyes closed? Can you do it with can you do it while maintaining a conversation? Can you you know, can you sing during it? Can you, you know, like, and now it's like, okay, well, my inner voice is somewhat schizophrenic in terms of music, so like there's a like an orchestra in my head, you know, like, and so like how do I do that without something infringing upon my ability to do that? And so that took a lot of creativity with how to do that thing. And so sometimes that requires the computer. So like I acknowledged that at a certain point of you know, live music. You know, I was always against, you know, sort of like anything that wasn't organic music to a certain point. And then I was like, well, you know, this tool really does fucking create some really interesting shit if you're willing to embrace it. And so like if I'm willing to embrace it as a DIY recording artist at that time, you know, like when I was a teenager and so on, if I'm willing to embrace that tool for what it is, to be able to go, okay, live guitar, live drums, live bass, you know, whatever, what have you, into this computational interface, and then produce something that is like a very fucking good approximation of what was, you know, going on in our minds that time, and a very good approximation of what was going on in the room that time, then why not investigate what else sonically that this thing can do, right? Like, and so uh, yeah, art wise, it was the same deal. Like, so it's just like embracing that, yeah, this is an incredible tool if you're willing to hack it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a phone. Like, we should be on the phone, which was an incredible tool as it was. And like, I only grew up with like a phone in the kitchen, you know, like, and so like now it's just totally baffling that it's like now to this degree where I mean, that was always like a joke in the head, was just like, what if you were something somewhere else, but you never even knew it? You know, like, so like the idea that you're in Scotland right now and like you've seen some art I've made in a bedroom when I was like bedladen is fucking totally cool. Like, for lack of better words, like, very fucking interesting, you know, like, and now right now, like, you know, I have the grace of being able to see a piece of your artwork behind you, and that's fucking awesome. You know, like how else do you get it out there?
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
And I think this is the very point. This is why a reason I mention it is that, I mean, it goes back to, I mean, the very essence of what you're, you know, the whole project you're around, Kill the Oppressor. I think one of the things that we don't need to do is to build anything around that's got barriers. And this is what I love about the decentralization in essence. That's what one of the things I love about technology. I'm very much like you, my friend. I mean, I mean, people, I have no desire to be in this. You know, give me a shot, and I'll be in the middle of the outback and never to be seen again. I mean, that's my desire. I have not. But what I love about if you know, we can't just sit there and just avoid this stuff. And I love the fact that, you know, that's what I was trying to say. The difference between decentralized as compared to centralized is where we are right now. This conversation is being filtered through a server. You know, this is all being recorded. It's all being, for someone somewhere is all sit. That should never be, because it's not the idea of even that should even be allowed, that anyone should be able to have the barrier between you know, us at all. But equally, it goes back to the whole beginning of this conversation, is for creativity, which is that edge we do have, and for the creative process, you need that sense of having, like you said, the live database. That's completely great, because you need that live experience of other people, but also you need to the idea of privacy. And this is one of the things that we've lost in this world, is everything has become, we put everything online, and you know, you touch Facebook, you go on to, people are putting all them everything on their lives online. And the real creativity, as you know, comes from sharing private thoughts, having the ability to know that we can have discussions and stuff without everybody, you know, knowing about it. Because that's what I'm saying. It's like when you're having a band practice or whatever you got to do, or anything. You don't. There's times as we as human beings like our privacy, and there's times when we like our public space. That's why we can understand that. We can go back to the whole thing about of society. The reason why, you know, certain political systems never came through is because the idea that, you know, we'd all want to live in glass houses and all knowing what's going on, well, that didn't work. And that's, you know, Stasi under Germany, you know, that was the whole idea, that everyone knew. No, we value our privacy, and it's essential for creativity. And that's why I'm very much fly the flag for decentralization, because I think like I was saying, we don't need to construct barriers. We need to be doing everything in our power to pull these barriers down. And, you know, I think on this is something we spoke about before we went live, and this is one of the, you know, you asked me about it, and I'd love to talk to you about it, you know, now about it. And I think it links with this very point, is that you know, I've got concepts of taking the N99 festival, and that's, as I said to you before we went live, that's the very idea of, again, of a decentralized concept of going, well, okay, we don't need some, you know, table of people all sat around deciding who's, no, this, you know, that's what I'm saying. This is my conversation to you. We can all do them. We can all get our own things, and let's connect them all. And it would be a great festival. We could all do it for ourselves, by ourselves, outside of the fiat money, outside of all this, and just taking control. And it would be great. Now, and that's what I'm asking you now. Obviously, we're all separated by distance and time and stuff like this. So, my one question to you, in relating to that whole idea of what we spoke about festival, goes to you directly. What are the barriers you now of, like? So you mentioned right at the beginning of this conversation about how you want to go out there and you play, you know, you're playing live and stuff. What are the barriers you're finding that you know, really in your way as to go and get live performances? Means you need permission? Is it hard to sort of get venues? Because over here, and I've, you know, and I was thinking the guests I've spoken to America, one of the big barriers that seems to be is actually just getting venues to play live in, because these venues now are all just only interested in money, and they just want to take money off you beforehand. And so, I mean, how do you approach that from where you are in Hamilton? Do you have a very kind of you just turn up at somewhere? Because I know one of the things that really I'm very greatly inspired by is a whole kind of mentality and the thought process behind the doom rock, which is just basically going out to the middle of nowhere and nature and playing under some cliffs and stuff. And instead of like, we don't need to play venues, just go out and take it in. So I know it's a very kind of broad question, but my generally is like, what's your thought process on, what are the barriers that stand in your way is when you're trying to get yourself out live? And feedback I'm asking you is, if I'm venturing onto this project of wanting to do a decentralized festival, what advice would you give me from someone who's in Canada, from where you're seeing the grounds where you are?
Well, first and foremost, the thing that's keeping a lot of people away from getting out there is themselves. So, like, me, for instance, you were looking for some of my things. I finally decided to abandon one of the biggest detriments to putting something out is that whole blessed curse of the perfectionism, right? I think that's worth mentioning, and so like the only thing slowing me down is myself, for instance, and so that would be the first thing that I would say to anyone is sure, it takes courage, because at any moment it's the idea to open to that extent to anyone. So like if music is your passion and you've safeguarded and you've made your little craft out of this thing, and it's like your little thing, and like the idea of like showing it to anyone, it takes that that fucking awesome someone that you love that you decided to fucking share this with, that happened to be like positive or negative, like whatever, like but you had the courage to like show them like this thing that you were working on, and why did you even have that courage? So you had the courage to show whatever, your best friend, that you were working on this thing, and and there's always that moment of like, well, it's not quite done yet, because like it's never quite done. Like I'll just say it that way, like it's never fucking done. Like you can fuck with something eternally, and it'll never get out there. And so you have to be able to honor that this is what it is right now. And like if I would hope, most people find someone that they can share that thing to, and they have a positive light on it. And so like I was able to have some really good friends that I'm still friends with, that back in the day were always very supportive of like that's an interesting drawing, or like, hey man, grab the guitar, and they're all tripping hallucinogenics or whatever, or maybe we all are and shit like that, and they want a soundscape, and there's my ass on a guitar. So like being able to just jump into that space. Music, I find very beneficial to that concept, because like the only way I can hear me playing at that moment of like genuine inspiration, something I haven't created before and shit like that, like just grabbing the guitar and playing, is for me to pick up the fucking guitar and play the goddamn thing. You know what I mean? Like, and allow myself to fuck up, allow myself to hit the bitch note, and find my way back, or like embrace that jazz mentality of like, there is no fucking wrong note, man. Like hit the wrong note twice, or to use that cliche, and then like get back to what you thought was like a lot of the drive recently with a lot of the live playing I've been doing for the past 2 years, like now being back in Hamilton and so on, I went to Alberta and I lived in a yurt, straw bale yurt that I built with a friend of mine on a farm over 8 years ago. When I was waiting to be a dad, when I got the word that my boy was in the womb, her and I weren't together anymore. I had 43 cents in my bank account. I was fresh off 2.5 years of homelessness. So, you know, there's part of me that was like, and there's part of everyone that was around me that was, and you know what it took to have this child in this world was throwing the middle fingers up and going all around me and being like, you know, we're going to do this because, like, you know, this being is going to be awesome. You know what I mean? Like for whatever her and I are or whatever, like we had a magic and we understood that that magic was going to be incarnate in this being. And so, you know, 43 cents in my bank account and then some generosity from my family where they were like, well, I don't know how the fuck you're going to pull it off, but here's $200 and make your way to Alberta. And so I go back there and I end up on a farm that I was woofing at, willing workers on organic farms. So I was doing that before, and then you know, popped the nut through a game of Magic there, you know, a horizontal limbo, and then I'm back there. So I show back up there to this farm where I was good friends with this farmer, and had a great take on reality. And I showed back up there, you know, no words announced or nothing like that. I drove, you know, 2.5 days across country to get there, and there I am. Okay, so like I've got $2 in my pocket, and I've got a bit of food from my car, and I'm living out of my car. And so I let myself in, and I started a fire, and I warmed the place up, and then I pass out because I was just driving for 2.5 days. So I passed out on the couch, threw the fucking comforter on me, and he's nowhere to be found. So I'm just like, okay, well, whatever, waiting it out. I woke up to my friend Chris Vester coming in, you know, night at the bar on his rare occasion that he finally goes out. And he comes in with his friend and just throws his coat on me because I'm under a blanket. How would he know that I'm there? And so he comes in, you know, after a couple of steins, and he's just like, goes to sit on me. And then I'm just like, hey, brother, man, I'm here. And he's just like, holy fuck, Steph, I haven't seen you in a long time. You know, how's it been and all this stuff? And I'm like, well, I'm pregnant. And so I'm here. I'm looking for work, and whatever you need doing, I'm down, you know, like, and basically, yeah, I'm here. And so I'm starting from here. And then he's just like, okay, cool. So, you know, throughout that process, he's just like around 15 minutes later, light a cigarette. Then he's like, well, I got you a job. You interested in being a carpenter's apprentice? And I was just like, yeah, sounds good. I always wanted to build. And so, you know, I put the guitar down because at that point of my existence, I was playing every day for minimum 10 hours a day, busking, living off that, in and out of studios, like recording friends of mine and all this shit. And so to me, I put the instrument down so that I could focus on the real, the real nature of like having to put a roof over little man's head, food in the belly, and get this shit done, right? Like, and I always wanted to build houses anyway. So I did that up, and then I came back, and where we landed with Hamilton. So that's where my son was born 8.5 years ago, almost 9 years ago now. And I landed here for my boy, and coming here from like after that focus of that. It took me a while to pick the guitar back up again, and because I was putting shit in my own way, like obstacles in my own way is a better way to phrase that. And so like, which is ridiculous. You know, like why can't I work 2 hours on a farm, go work 12 hours building houses, fucking work 2 more hours on a farm, light a campfire, and play 5 minutes of guitar. Like, honestly, like those 5 minutes probably would have helped my soul quite a bit. because I went very internal and I don't know, just new dad and scared. Like the so the fear kept me away from a certain element of creativity. But the thing that was keeping me going was the ability as like working. I was building houses, so I was creating something that someone was going to live in. Like and like what I was focusing on was the idea of like I need somewhere where I'm going to live because like I'd already been homeless, and so like I'm not going to raise my boy on the street. It's not an easy life. Yeah, I don't want that for him, so I want something better. Like just like any parent wants something better for their kid than what they had, and so learning that craft was integral. Finally, I picked the thing back up because of my son. Like I want to show him an interesting world. Like and so like little baby boy, and I'm beatboxing with him while he's dancing on my chest and all this stuff, and we're having fun like that, and then that inspired me to get back into it, and then after years of being here, I finally went back to Alberta into the same yurt that I helped build with Chris, and lived out of that through one of the coldest winters that we've had here. Um, so I was living in that straw bale yurt that we bitched together in the course of 2 days, Chris and I, on a 160-acre farm here that he runs biodynamically, where it's like him and I running a 160-acre farm. So quite a bit of fucking work. There's over 300 animals to take care of, as well as there's these ridiculous financial obligations towards having to deal with reality at this point. And so we do that. We keep that shit going, and we built that yurt, and that's what I lived out of when I went there 2 years ago, through the coldest winter. So minus 68, the coldest I saw living in that yurt with the potbelly stove in a 10-foot diameter circle. So like a little roundhouse, adobe with tarp as a roof, was minus 87 Celsius.
Oh,
So like I'm just putting that out there just so that people have perspective. All right. So like minus 87 Celsius, what that means is you run out of fucking wood to burn, you're dead. Um, so I ran out of wood at a certain point during that fucking, long winter and so on, during one of the fucking coldest nights. So that night, if I remember exactly, I think it was minus 62. Okay. You've got no windbreaks in Alberta. It's prairies until the Rockies. Okay. So like there's not very many old growth trees and things like that. Like, and we're at the highest point east of the Rockies for Alberta. Okay, so like we're on the top of a hill where there's absolutely no windbreak, is what I'm getting at. So that night, minus 62 or so, and then you can add wind chill. So probably minus 80 something. It is grim. Let's put it that way. I go to the wood pile and there's no wood. So what do? Right? Like, and what you do is find your inner fire. Your inner fire, I think, is something that only Northerners know, or maybe totally down south. I've never been like all the way on the other end of the hemisphere, but when it gets that fucking cold, every person here that has grown up here understands how to breathe a certain way that would only
Hmm. Maybe you need to plug your mic in and out again, my friend, because we lost the last bit of that conversation. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because we've lost all mic connection with you, my friend. No. But for whatever reason, maybe I don't. Maybe try hanging up and come back on again, because at the moment we've got no connection at all. I can't hear anything at your end. My suggestion, maybe try. No, I can't hear a word you're saying. My suggestion would be maybe Chris, maybe try leaving the conversation and coming back again. I can't hear a word you're saying. Well, as we're sort of coming with these technical difficulties, and I don't know whether Chris can hear me, whether he can hear me over there, but it's been a very fascinating conversation so far tonight, and I recommend people go out and sort of try to find, Kill the Oppressor. I mean, you can find him on Kill the Oppressor on minds.com. You can find him on Facebook as well. But I don't know, we're having really bad connections here, so I don't know whether can you hear me, Chris? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, I've lost your picture as well. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. No, never mind. Like I say, it's Kill the Oppressor. Go and find him on minds.com. And while we're waiting for that, I will we'll put some find some. Yeah, Chris, I know. I don't know if you can hear me now, but okay. Well, we seem to be having connection problems, so to wrap this one, it's been sort of crashed in, maybe the essence of this very conversation. So for me and here in Scotland, and Kill the Oppressor, like I said, go and check them out on minds.com, Facebook. Oh, we're back. Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear each other again. I was perfect, man. Sorry, I missed about the last minute of your conversation. Yeah, I don't know. We had technical issues or whatever.
What was I driving at? I don't know.
Ah, so it don't matter, man. It'll all be caught up on the.
Basically, what I'm just like forward and make your, you open the doors yourself.
Exactly.
No one, yeah, driving at to nutshell that whole thing.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to sort of I did want to mention to you, and it was something that we've talked about. I have a fascination with standing stones and the way you can balance these pebbles up, and I'll probably put some pictures of a link up when we put the show out. Now, I've been fascinated as I spoke to you before because I've seen this all over South America when I've been to South America. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it all around the places I've been to in the world. My question to you is someone who practices that craft. How's it actually done? Because I'm fascinated because there seems to be no cutting of the stone, and it's like, and I have seen there is a I've seen people around the world before, yeah, especially a Chinese gentleman who can balance virtually anything. He just finds the center of gravity and he's able to balance anything on that line. So how is he? Let's be real about this shit. I mean, there's no magic involved. How are you actually managing to balance those stones? And then how do they stay there? They don't just all fall apart, under the first sort of break of wind. Please enlighten me on this whole subject.
For me, originally, I just saw images of We're Still Together.
Yep.
Okay. I saw images of it, fired me into it. Me as Canadian, we have stone balances everywhere called Inuksuks. And Inuksuks are more of a northern thing. The Inuit make them all the time, but that also translates all the way through countless tribes. So Inuksuks are essentially stone balances that somewhat look like a human figure. So, like, they'll be 2 feet and we're rock everywhere. There's the cliche we're the asshole of the earth. Okay, so like there's this meteorite that hit and at some point did was a huge basin of gigantic land mass and around right that and so on. It's rock everywhere. Okay, and like post mining industry, all that rock is black, and then at the top of these rocks that they've blasted through, and it takes all these explosives to make all those roads for that place. There's all these cliff sides that you're going through, and on top of those are randomly these Inuksuks. Okay, so that was like my first experience with the Inuksuks was being like whatever. I can't remember that far back, but you know what I mean. So like far back my memory goes, these stone balances were prevalent everywhere. And then you start to learn maybe what they're for. Like is it chooks? The way that the hands or whatever, like the way it would lead you towards blueberries, for instance, was were used. They were used as like basically signposts to a lot to food or maybe or something like that, like shelter. So I mean, this is an age-old thing, I guess. Like for one stone on top of another, in a way where most of the time, naturally, you wouldn't see this thing. So it's like it immediately shows someone this, how humans engage in this planet. Like one of the first balances that I did, it, I mean, 15 seconds or something like that, like where I balanced a thing that really should not, it doesn't visually look like it should fucking balance on this thing, right? Like it's a big rock, pointed end, tiny little point on this thing, and it was in the middle of a stump that I had driven into a lake, and on top of that thing with waves colliding on it, this thing still stood. Patience is key, and the ability to feel like, and so I wanted to put together sort of intricate balances is basically based off a simple shape. 3 points makes a triangle. So no matter how round and odd those stones are, you can use, there's always going to be 3 points, even though visually it might not look like it, but you'll be able to feel it. So you might feel 2 points, and then maybe you spin this, try it one way, try it another way, and then you'll find this point where it's deciding like I'm okay with this. Importantly, balance, you might work on it for hours and only catch that balance in 15 seconds. If a bird is going to land on it, if a bird lands on it, usually it topples over. Every now and then a bird lands on some of my pieces and it doesn't topple over. And so it's earworms. And then you can use like you wet rock. But yeah, basically just keep trying. like yeah, patience and yeah, definitely about patience. So like for someone like me, like I like the speed I find difficult. That is very good thing for someone like to learn patience, and the only way I can create itself is if I am
Oh, look, we're having really sort of, I think the connection problems are breaking down bit by bit. So, look, before we're going to go, I mean, as I said before, I mean, I recommend to anyone listening right now or in the future to go out and find Kill the Oppressor on minds.com and on Facebook. And again, I don't know if I've got any, if you can hear any of this, what we have at your end over there in Canada, but if you can, you know, like I say, it's been an absolute powerful conversation tonight, man. And maybe, you know, like I say, always welcome back on here. You know, anytime, because I think we've kind of barely scratched upon the surface tonight. So just to sort of, and again, I mean, I'm looking forward to, and I think there's a great synergy going on. Maybe when we all get to hear this great big blitz of Kill the Oppressor music coming out, and hopefully be a synergy of what we're doing with N99, because it'd be great to sort of have the two synergize together, because the reason I'm building, you know, N99 is exactly for that reason, to get, you know, to flag and get people like, you know, what you're doing out there into the greater world. So, you know, like I say, you know, it's been absolute powerful conversation tonight, and I don't know if you can hear me at your end, because we seem to have some really crackling problems, but if you can, you know, I'll hand it over to you, and you know, we'll finish with that. And if you could sort of, like, you know, anyone, you know, listening, how would you sort of, what would be the parting message you want to sort of, you know, wrap this whole conversation up, and, you know, sort of say, anyone walking away, to be the parting sort of message to leave with them, and then we'll just crash this before it gets too crumbly in the internet. So that's my sort of parting to you, man. You know, what were your parting message to anybody listening tonight? And therein, my friends, lies the answer to it all. Sometimes silence is the very answer. The very answer to everything in life is there is silence, and there is basically a void, and there is nothingness. And as we're saying in this whole conversation tonight, it's all about being creative and inspiring each other. So I don't know if you can hear me over there, my man, but we're obviously having really technical issues. So I'm going to crash this thing and call it a night. So from me over here in Scotland, life is people, people.